Alright, rockers, every now and again I'm very lucky to be able to get brand new music here inside the Asylum and interview members of those new bands. Brand new band, Fall to June, is getting ready to release their debut album coming up on April 21st. And joining me right now is their lead singer, Ben Badger, here inside the Asylum. How are you, Ben?
I'm fantastic, Turbo. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Good, man. Thank you for joining me here tonight inside the Asylum and helping to get everyone aware of what Fall to June is all about. And I guess the best thing to do really is let's start at the beginning, man. How did Fall to June come together?
Well, there's a group of guys playing around Orlando in about 2001, 2002. And I heard from their manager that they were looking for a new vocalist. Their vocalist had moved, so they were looking for somebody, and I was kicking around just trying to develop a name for myself, if you will. And I came to audition. Apparently, it was quite the extensive search they were going through. They had gone through about a month of people coming in and trying out. They had emailed me 2 of their tracks. So I showed up with those prepared the way I heard them on their recordings, and then I asked if they minded if I tried one a little bit different so they could kind of get a taste of what I might do with some of the music given the chance. And I guess they liked it. So they quit their search and they hired me, and in 2005 we went on a little hiatus that ended up going for about 9 years. Our drummer Nate, he went and he was playing in a band called Nerver with Casey Daniel at February 3, and the rest of us kind of spread out. I started doing performance coaching, and long story short, Nate convinced me to go back in the studio early last year and kind of finish some stuff that we left on the table, and it turned out really, really well. And we fell in love with the music again, and we were really able to develop a personal relationship stronger and from a new place than we were able to do before, and that made the music better.
So then, with Fall to June, originally you were kind of coming in as a hired gun, per se.
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, somewhat. Back then, it was actually not called Fall to June at the time. It was they were going under a different moniker, and we decided to change the name when I did come on board, kind of for that purpose, so that we were all fresh and doing it together. And that's when we came up with the name Fall to June. As it turns out, now Nate and I are the only original members from Fall to June, and we've been incredibly blessed with the musicians we've been able to surround ourselves with now. We've got Jeremy Marshall, the ex-bass player for Cold. He's playing with us. We've got Dan Michler from a band called Pontius Pilate. Jason Todd from Shinedown is going out on tour with us this summer as our lead guitarist. So we got a real nice family now, and we love it.
It definitely sounds that way, and you can definitely feel it on the album. Now, you guys took that as you said, what meant to be a little hiatus turned into a 9-year hiatus. How much of the debut album was ready to go before the hiatus, or was it all mostly put together afterwards?
4 of the songs that are on the album were written from that first iteration of Fall to June, but they've all changed into something new. They've all been updated exponentially. The rest of them we've written since, within the last year. 2 of the songs that are on there we co-wrote with Fuel. One of the songs we wrote with a dear friend of ours, Nolan Neal. So we've got some of the old material on there, but it's all completely updated and fresh. Not just because of the changing times or trying to update the sound, but we're different people now. We're actually better musicians than we were back then, and we have more to say.
So now, was the sound? Because I mean, I got the album late last week. Before you and I got to speak, I've been listening to it over the weekend. I mean, it has a really good southern rock, hard rock vibe. Was that what you guys were doing when you first got together, or was that something that came as a result of going back after the hiatus?
That's what happened when we decided to be an honest band, to really harness who we were. We were trying really hard to have a radio sound the first time, which isn't a bad thing. That's just where we were in our heads as a band. This time we said, you know what, let's just be who we are. And as we were putting these songs together, that truth came through, that we're just some good old hard-working Southern boys that have something to say and something to play. And that just kind of ended up taking on a more blue-collar entity than it was the first time.
And I also think it also helps to bring the album all around full. You know, there are so many bands that nowadays they get stuck in that we gotta play what sounds relevant nowadays as opposed to what feels right. And it shows on the album.
Yeah, if you play what's really truthful and really honest to you, and you just get a producer that understands how to harness that and make it clean and compress properly for radio. We didn't want to have a bunch of effects and digital this and digital that just so it sounded radio friendly. We wanted to be real musicians playing real rock and roll. We got lucky that we had a producer in Stan Martell that understood our vision and kept it real and just honed the technical portion of the engineering process to make it tight for radio.
Oh, for sure. And what I found listening to the album is on the album there are songs to me that scream top 40 radio. I listen to Barbed Wire Trees, and to me that says top 40 radio. But when you open the album with a song like Redemption, and then you dig a little deeper with Delta Breakdown, which is the big single that you guys are doing right now with Fall to June, those aren't really, to me, top 40 radio. Those are just straight up hard rock songs that could break into top 40 radio with the right DJs.
Could and have. Delta Breakdown, as of today, is number 36 on the mainstream rock charts, Turbo.
There you go.
Yeah, that's as of today. That's pretty accurate. We didn't have a goal of being top 40 by any means, but we did have a goal of it being music that the masses could enjoy. And if that meant the masses got to enjoy it on the radio dial, then all the better.
Absolutely, and it's always good all the way around. And now Delta Breakdown is a great song. I know it's the single, but I also found myself really getting into the song Closer, as well as Unbreakable and The Chance. I mean, the guitar work on The Chance is just absolutely amazing. I mean, the way it comes in from one side and then goes to the other. I mean, you guys did something with that one. You went stereo with that. You weren't afraid to play with people's equilibrium, and I like that.
The Chance actually was pretty self-indulgent. The reason we recorded that is because we had such a good time playing it. So we were like, oh, we're going to the studio. Let's go ahead and do this one because it's fun, and it's still fun. We oftentimes will open our show with that one because of the response. It says a lot lyrically about some different things that. I don't like to explain the lyrics too often to too many people because I want them to understand what it means for them. But lyrics play such a big role in we have to say as our band. I won't write lyrics until I've heard the music because I want to know what the music's telling me to say.
Well, no, that's a very interesting aspect because there were so many bands over the years that have always said, well, we write the lyrics first and then the music comes to us. And here you are, you go the other way around.
Well, and there's a reason for that. I write, probably about 99.7% of the lyrics for this band, but I won't do it until the music's done because every song that we write as a unit. So we're putting together these ideas and these thoughts in the rehearsal space and in the, sometimes in the living room or in the backyard, wherever we happen to be with some instruments, we're putting these ideas together. And it's through how those ideas get formulated that tell me what the song should be about at all from a lyrical standpoint. And so in order for us to really truly do this as a band from a writing standpoint, if I were to write the lyrics first, then they're fighting too hard to fit into some pigeonhole that I've drawn instead of me understanding truly what it is that we're feeling as a band and making that a lyrical composition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does, because it comes across, what you guys do, you guys don't see, it sounds like to me from what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're basically saying is, you guys don't sit there and go, alright, well, it's time to write another song, let's sit down and write. It sounds more like what you guys do, like you sit down, you start jamming, and if something comes to you and it feels right, you just keep going and you build on it.
Without question. That is the most organic way to do it, in our opinion. That's not the only way to do it, and a lot of people have great successes using other formulas. For us, we let the vibe tell us where to go, and then we clean it up and make it a real song and compose it correctly.
I've always found that was always the best way for music to be born. You listen to a lot of the bands that came back in the day. You listen to those early bands, Zeppelin, Sabbath, The Doors, The Stones even. You could tell a lot of it came from jam sessions. And
yeah, it's homegrown. It's real.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what I've often found the truest music really comes through. And I knew from the first song, when I first heard the album, I always try to give the album a full go-through before I say I'm in or I'm out on an album. And within the first couple of hits of Redemption, it just comes out right away that, hey man, this is a hard rocking band. They know what they're doing. They're not BSing. You can feel it in the music that you guys have done on this debut album.
Thank you so much. That's exactly what we want.
Very welcome. And I've got to ask, because you guys really hit that southern rock sound. What were some of the bands that got you guys, that got you influenced into, doing music and what you're doing as well as your unique vocal style? Was there anyone in particular that stood out?
It's so funny that you ask that because we come from such different places individually as musicians, but they all play well together. My vocal background, my training is actually in R&B and a cappella jazz. So I had never really given the rock band thing too much of a go until this. And as it turns out, a lot of my biggest rock vocal influences, their training is in R&B or jazz. So it's a perfect marriage. My drummer, Nate, his favorite band is Testament. So he really just loves that hard-hitting rock and roll. Our bass player, Jeremy, his favorite bands are Black Sabbath, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. Dan, our guitarist, Alice in Chains is his favorite, and he came from a real hard band. But Jeremy was born in Georgia, Dan right here in Jacksonville. Me and Nate are ironically both from Arkansas. We lived about 20 miles from each other and didn't meet until we got to Orlando.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we're all from a southern place, and all that music has a lot of the same components. They're just put together different. And that's kind of what we did, is we took a lot of our components and put them together in a way that spoke of us as a band, not of us as a band influenced by this guy, this guy, this guy. So the southern rock thing is just kind of that's what happens when you're honest. That's just kind of what happened. We ended up playing this music, and it sounded southern rock, and went, well, yeah, that's who we are, isn't it? We're a couple southern boys that like to drink some beers and play rock and roll. And that's just the truth in our identity right there.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with it, because, I mean, you look back, there's been some amazing bands over the years, southern rock. I mean, Leonard Skinner is like the king of southern rock bands, and I think you guys are right up there with all those southern rock bands in what you're doing as far as the newer age of southern rock, because, I mean, Delta Breakdown, to me, not just the single version, but even the acoustic version, there is just something about it that just says pure on 100% good old southern rock that kind of has been missing. Now, we've had Hell Yeah over the past couple of years. That's done well in regards to keeping southern rock alive. There's a great band from here in the New York area called Kill Code. What they do has a very southern rock vibe. But some of the other bands that have done it over the years, they've drifted off. They've gone too far either into the pop world, or they felt they had to get too heavy, heavier, and they got too heavy. And I think what you guys have managed to do is find that perfect balance in between both sides of what southern rock is and what so many people know southern rock to be.
Wow, thank you. You know, keeping it real means a lot.
Well, you have to. I've always found, I mean, I've only been in the music industry 5 years now, but I've always found when I come across individuals like yourself and like your band, Fall to June, the ones that keep it real are the ones putting out the best music.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. You know, we could spend all kinds of money trying to get things all perfect and polished and clean, but we're not perfect and polished and clean, so why do we want to represent ourselves that way? You know, I bet our fans aren't perfect and polished and clean either. They like to get a little grease under their nails and shoot back a shot of whiskey after work.
Absolutely.
We get along just great with those guys. So that's, you know, we want music that not only everybody else likes, but we like. We want to kick back after a long day and put in our album and enjoy what it sounds like, not just the fact that we made it, but you know where it takes us in our head.
So now you had said I got sidetracked momentarily. Your vocal training is from R&B and jazz. Now was that a big adjustment for you to go from that style to doing what you're doing in Fall to June, or was it just like, you know, turning on a light switch, like, hey, I can do this?
It wasn't difficult at all. That's what my training was in. My listening pleasure, if you will, my influences growing up. My parents say that as a baby, I would not go to sleep unless they were blaring either ZZ Top or Led Zeppelin into my crib.
Nice.
So I've always had rock and roll in my bones, but I had never tried to sing it as much. I was always busy doing something for the R&B or the jazz idea. But as it turns out, rock and roll vocals really lend themselves to that idea. You don't have to be a screamer or a growler to sing rock and roll. You can sing. You know, Sebastian Bach, he's classically trained vocalist. Chris Cornell, listen to his voice. He's got a 6.5, 7 octave range, and he does these little trills and growls at the end that are actually pretty R&B inspired. And that's kind of what I've done is as I've just listened to the music, this amazing music that I've been blessed to participate in, and I get to use some of the ideas that I learned from my training, but more so I get to use my heart and my truth that I've been raised with, and that is your rock and roll, and that is your bluegrass and your classic amazing sounds. My dad used to have me sit on the floor in his bedroom, and he had this huge record collection, took up a whole wall. And just about every day, he'd put on a new record, and he'd say, "Hey, man, taste this." And I was, 4, 5, 6 years old at the time, and I did. I remembered all that. He'd play me Uriah Heep and Cream and Meatloaf and Stan Clark, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds, and I mean, just on and on and on. All this amazing stuff. It's all R&B background.
It is.
It all comes from rhythm and blues.
Right, and the funny thing is, that's something I think a lot of people forget nowadays is all that early rock and metal that we all sit there and go, oh, why can't today's bands sound like these bands from back then? Because it came from a different place back then.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about playing stuff is you have to know how to play it. So the training has to come from someplace.
It's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah. Can't argue with you there. For those joining late, Ben Badger of the band Fall to June talking with me now. I know, Ben, you've got a lot to going on, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'm sure everyone's wondering, those who have heard Delta Breakdown and those who are pre-ordering the new album, the debut album, Fall to June, coming out on April 21st, are wondering, what are the touring plans for you guys?
Well, we got some one-offs that we're doing through April, kind of going through the Bible Belt and down into Texas, and got a couple shows we're working on here in Florida. After that, everything is in the planning stages right now. I don't want to say too much because things are changing, and until it's concrete, I don't want to give away a farm. But we got some big things we're working on for this summer. There's potential, and a lot of miles getting put on our old tour wagon and maybe some planes. We'll see what happens.
Very cool. I mean, now you guys are, being that you guys are a new band with the debut album. Are there things that you might dig out in your live set that people might not expect to hear from you guys? I mean, the album is a great album, but I'm sure you want to give people a taste of what you guys are able to do, and don't want to pigeonhole yourselves into playing the album, beginning to end. Is there anything more people?
We throw a couple of surprises into the live show. There's a couple of things that we do that even as we were coming up with them, we were like, is this going to work? And they do. And we always want to challenge ourselves to make sure our live show is at least as good as the record. You don't go to a concert to hear the record. You can do that in your car on the way there. What you go to the concert for is to experience something different and amazing. And what we try to make sure and provide is a positive atmosphere for people to rock and really release themselves from the negativity of the daily grind, man. We want you to pop open a beer and get in the front row and give us some horns and smile as you're bobbing your head to Redemption or to Closer or to Curtain Call or to Delta. We want you to experience what we got to experience by writing the song in the first place. So we fight real hard to give that to the people when they come and make the effort to show up when we're playing a show.
Yeah, I hear that, and I gotta say that is very refreshing to hear that, because so many new bands, when they go out there and they get on these tours and it's their first album, they go out there and they just kind of regurgitate the album back to the audience, and they don't maybe they don't do the entire album because of time restraints, but they essentially just say, all right, well, this is what you know from the album, so this is what we're going to give you. And I like that, you guys are going to go out there and just say, look, the album, you listen to it on your car on the way here, you're probably going to do it on the way home. Why are we going to give you more of the same when that's not what you came here for? And
we want to give them enough of the album where they don't feel cheated for what they thought they were going to hear, but we also want to give them an experience that maybe they didn't expect. We can even play to a click track because we want to keep it real and pure and honest on stage.
I love that, dude. I tell you, I hope more of the up and coming bands take that mentality, because there's just too many bands out there right now that just get into this rut of, well, these are the songs we're going to play and that's all we're going to play kind of thing. And I look forward to it.
To each his own. Everybody's going to have their own process, but that's ours. That's how we like to do it live.
Absolutely, man. Look, I look forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully you guys come through the New York area and I can catch you guys live. And I want to thank you for joining me here inside the Asylum, Ben. And before I let you go, man, we talked about a bunch of songs from the album. I know Delta Breakdown is the single, but I always like to have my guests tell me what song I should play. So which one from the album should I play?
Well, I want everybody to play Delta as much as possible. From a personal standpoint, I gotta be honest. I'm really attached to Rain. There's a lot of different reasons why, but I love Rain.
Well, what's one of those reasons that you're attached to the Rain from on the debut album?
Well, that's the song Rain. There's a song on there called Rain, and it speaks to me on a lot of different levels.
Well, then you got it, man. We're gonna do that right now. Brand new music for you listeners right now. Something you ain't even heard on radio yet. That's right. This is called The Rain from Fall to June's debut album. Check it out and hang out. More to come inside the Asylum.